The wind howled like a banshee, clawing at the windows of the isolated cabin. Each gust threatened to rip the old wooden structure from its foundations and send it tumbling down the snow-covered mountain. I huddled deeper into the threadbare armchair, pulling my ratty wool blanket tighter. Outside, the winter storm raged, painting the world in shades of white and gray, a monochrome canvas of isolation and dread. I'd come to this cabin, nestled deep in the remote wilderness of the Adirondacks, seeking solace, a retreat from the suffocating pressures of city life, a chance to reconnect with myself and wrestle with the anxieties that gnawed at me. Instead, I'd found something far more sinister waiting in the frozen shadows. The first few days had been idyllic. The silence was deafening, broken only by the crackling fire and the occasional call of a distant bird. I'd spent hours reading, hiking through the crisp, snow-dusted woods, and feeling a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in years. But as the storm intensified, so did the unease that crept into my bones. Started subtly with noises I couldn't quite explain. A soft scratching at the door, like a tiny animal desperate for shelter. Footsteps in the snow outside, even when I knew I was alone. Whispers on the wind, carrying words I couldn't quite decipher, but whose tone was undeniably malevolent. I tried to rationalize it, to chalk it up to the isolation and the tricks my mind was playing on me. But the rationalizations grew weaker with each passing day, drowned out by the growing symphony of terror. Then came the dreams. They were vivid, horrifying, and deeply personal, preying on my deepest fears and insecurities. I'd wake up gasping, heart pounding, drenched in a cold sweat. The images still burned into my mind's eye. Dreams of being chased through endless, snow-covered forests by something unseen, something that whispered my name with chilling familiarity. Dreams of faces peering in through the windows, gaunt and pale, their eyes burning with an unholy light. One night, I dreamt I was standing in the middle of a frozen lake. The ice was thin, cracking beneath my feet. I tried to move, but my legs were frozen in place. Then, from beneath the ice, a hand reached up, pale and skeletal, its fingers gnarled and blackened. It grasped my ankle, its grip like a vice, and pulled me down into the icy depths. I woke up screaming, the taste of ice and fear still clinging to my tongue. The next day, I found the first carving. It was on the back of the cabin door, hidden from view unless you were looking for it. A crude, almost childlike drawing of a stick figure hanging from a tree. Underneath it, etched deep into the wood, were the words, "He's watching." I almost left then, packed my bags, grabbed my keys, and ran screaming into the storm. But something held me back. A morbid curiosity, a stubborn refusal to be driven away by something I couldn't understand. Or perhaps, a terrifying realization that wherever I went, whatever was happening here would follow. The carvings became more frequent, more disturbing. Images of distorted faces, grotesque figures, and symbols I didn't recognize but felt instinctively were evil. They appeared on the walls, on the furniture, even etched into the frost on the windows. Each one a chilling message, a constant reminder that I was not alone. One afternoon, the power went out. The cabin plunged into darkness, the only light source the flickering flames of the fireplace. I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands shaking with a fear I couldn't control. As I turned it on, the beam landed on the wall above the fireplace. There, carved into the wood, was my name. That was when the scratching started again. Louder, more insistent, coming from the attic above my head. I knew there was nothing up there. The attic was unfinished, just bare beams and insulation. But the scratching persisted, growing louder and more frantic with each passing second. I grabbed the poker from the fireplace, my knuckles white as I gripped it tightly. Taking a deep breath, I slowly climbed the narrow staircase leading to the attic. Each step creaked ominously, echoing in the oppressive silence. As I reached the top, I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. I shone the flashlight beam into the darkness, scanning the unfinished attic. The air was thick with dust and the smell of old wood. There was nothing there. Then the scratching stopped. A silence descended, so profound it was almost deafening. I stood there, frozen, my senses on high alert, waiting for something to happen. And then it did. A guttural growl echoed from the corner of the attic, followed by the sound of something heavy shuffling through the darkness. The flashlight beam danced wildly as I tried to pinpoint the source of the noise. And then I saw it. A figure huddled in the shadows, its form indistinct, but undeniably human. Or at least it had been human once. Now it was something else. Something twisted and corrupted by the darkness. It was tall and gaunt, its skin stretched taut over its bones. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, and its mouth was stretched into a grotesque grin, revealing rows of sharp, pointed teeth. It smelled of decay and something else, something ancient and foul. It lunged at me. I screamed and stumbled backward, tripping over a loose board. I fell down the stairs, landing hard on the floor below. The poker clattered to the ground beside me. The figure was right behind me. I scrambled to my feet and ran, desperate to escape. I burst out of the cabin door and into the blinding snowstorm. The wind howled around me, stinging my face and making it hard to see. I ran blindly through the woods, not knowing where I was going, just driven by the primal instinct to survive. I could hear the figure crashing through the trees behind me, its heavy footsteps muffled by the snow. I stumbled and fell, the icy ground knocking the wind out of me. As I struggled to get up, I saw the figure emerge from the trees. It was closer now, and I could see its features more clearly. Its face was a mask of pure evil, its eyes burning with hatred. It raised a hand, its fingers long and skeletal. A chilling wind whipped around it, carrying with it the whispers of the damned. I closed my eyes, bracing for the end. But it never came. Instead, I heard a loud crack, followed by a sickening thud. I opened my eyes to see the figure lying on the ground, a thick branch protruding from its chest. Above it, a tree swayed in the wind, its branches laden with snow. The wind howled again, and the whispers faded away. I stood there for a long time, staring at the figure lying in the snow. I didn't know what it was, or where it had come from. All I knew was that it was gone. For now. I limped back to the cabin, my body aching and my mind reeling. The power was still out, and the cabin was freezing cold. I huddled by the fire, trying to make sense of what had happened. As the sun began to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, I made a decision. I wasn't going to stay here any longer. I packed my bags, grabbed my keys, and left the cabin. I didn't look back. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The cabin stood silhouetted against the rising sun, a dark and forbidding shape against the pristine white landscape. I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Etched into the snow around the cabin were footprints. Small, childlike footprints, leading into the woods. I shivered and pressed down on the accelerator, driving faster and faster, desperate to escape the horrors I had witnessed. I never went back to the cabin, and I never spoke of what happened there. Some things are best left buried in the snow, forgotten and undisturbed. But even now, years later, I still have the nightmares. I still hear the whispers on the wind. And every winter, when the snow falls and the wind howls, I can't help but feel a sense of dread. A sense that whatever lurked in those woods is still out there, waiting, watching, and that one day it will come for me again. Because some things you can never truly escape. Some horrors cling to you, like the icy grip of winter, forever frozen in your soul.